remember about the process of setting up a collage?
My memory is that David York basically came to me and asked me if it would be okay. I said, yeah, it's wonderful. Let's do it. And I think we started out doing the meals. The members of Collage really took that ball and ran with it. But I was always invited and I usually went. We had a wonderful time. I always felt very, very welcomed at Collage events.
Can you remember or think in terms of what they saw as the purpose of starting Collage? Or how did you see the purpose of starting Collage?
I always believed that, you need to have a need for fellowship. And I thought probably the need for fellowship was very, very strong. Out of that group, leadership arose that came to the fore. Out of that group, lots of ideas got percolated. I've always thought it was one of the stronger groups in the church.
Sarah Little and Barbara Shaver had the privilege of interviewing David York, a founder of Collage at First Congregational UCC, on September 23rd, 2021. David began the conversation by saying he and his partner, Ross Elwood, first attended a Sunday service at First Congregational on September 24th, 2000. They decided to join the church as members July 29th, 2001, so they could vote for the open and affirming bylaw that was coming up for a vote after several month process. Picture, if you will, a tall, well-dressed Tennessee gentleman speaking in his deliberate and refined manner, as I tell David's story for him at his request. Several things happened on the way to what we have today, known as Collage. First, the church had decided to become an O&A congregation. Second, I was invited to become a member of the construction zone class taught by Don Treffinger, Joan Perdue, and Reverend Seister. Third, Ross and I visited Boston and went to the Sunday service at the Old South Church, which was an O&A United Church of Christ congregation. While at Old South that Sunday, I made note that they had a gay fellowship meeting once a month at the church on a Sunday for a covered dish lunch in one of their several meeting halls. After Ross and I returned to Sarasota, we took John Seister to Michael's on East and presented my idea of a gay group with a different name. Ross and I had come up with the name of Collage. Reverend Seister said, "Go for it." Within a few weeks, we flew back to Boston and met with the leaders at Old South Church for ideas on starting such a group. Soon after returning to Sarasota, Ross and I invited the first 12 to a lunch after church as our guests. We did not want anybody to have to pay in case they would not come. The first 12 included Wally Beckstrom and Jim Whitliff, Gene and Stu, Neil Linder and Tom Briggs, Dick Howard, and Big Ron Warwick, Reverend John Seister, Greg Chestnut, Ross, and me. We met July 21st, 2002 at Jay Ryan's in Lakewood Ranch in a private room. After that lunch, it was decided we would meet for an organizational meeting. Tom and Neil volunteered their living room for this first planning meeting by the group. It was decided that Collage would be a spiritual, social, and service group. We would meet the fourth Sunday of the month after church for lunch. There would be socials for Christmas, spring, and Halloween. We would endeavor to be active on official boards. After discussion of what Collage would mean, Neil came up with the term for the C we'd been trying to find, coalition. Thus, the Coalition of Laity for Lesbian and Gay Equality, or Collage, was started. Collage leaders over the years were David York, Neil Linder, David York again, Tom Reeves and Doug Smith, Dale Moore, and currently Pauline Gary and Jerry Oliver.
I believe that it was David York and Ross Elwood, that really initiated the establishment of Collage. I know they were certainly some of the original members. Collage came about a little later as really initiated as a support group for our LGBT members. As Collage evolved throughout the years, I know they started moving from just parties and social gatherings to having a monthly meeting in a local restaurant. And that's when they started inviting in speakers and people to address various issues in our community. And there became more of an opportunity for Collage to serve and to grow. And at that time also, our lesbian sisters began to join us and some of our allies.
Well, I believe I was the leader of Collage at the time. David and Ross had an organizational meeting over at our house, and there was probably about 7 people, Wally and Jim, Dick Howard, Chuck Jarman, Tom and I think that about includes, most of us. Ross came up with the name Collage, and I believe that David and Ross kind of led it for a couple years. And then he was looking to pass the leadership on to someone else. So then I took it over.
What kind of gatherings did you have with Collage at that time?
We had parties, like we had 2 Halloween parties. We had 2 Christmas parties. We had a St. Patrick's Day dinner at Chuck Jarman's. But usually we had a quarterly brunch at one of the restaurants. And so it was like 4 times a year. We went to St. Pete Pride, Tampa Pride, and Sarasota. And we had a booth for the UCC churches. And we had a good response. That's how Boyd, our primary focus was trying to reach out to let people know that there was a church where they would be open and accepting. Dr. John Seister, he was so great about getting the gay people involved, and a lot of us helped with the Thursday nights children's program, and to me that was a blessing, because at the time we moved to Florida, gay people definitely could not adopt, and I like kids. So we had a great time working with the kids. And as it turned out, I know there were at least 2 that were transgender and 1 that was gay. So I think we might have been an example for them, I hope.
When you and Doug came to the church, you were saying?
Yes, and that was in 2009 we started. And David York was the head of Collage at the time. He was setting up the meetings, but Doug got very involved right away. As a matter of fact, we then helped David by doing the emails and connecting with people, while David really was the head of the Collage group. Don't know how many years later, a couple of years later, Doug took over for David.
And how long was Doug in leadership of Collage?
Up until just before he himself passed away, which was January of 2014. I then tried to help take over from there. And that was probably for just a year or 2, if that much. I think Dale got more involved, and then we made it official. At the time, I think we were transitioning between meeting places.
And so where did you meet?
Yeah, we had the monthly brunch after church.
What was your purpose in sort of picking this up from Doug and carrying it on? Yeah, what did you want to see happen?
I was just trying to hold it as part of his legacy. Collage helped take over the coffee hour at times, specifically on Mother's Day. That was the big one. They also held a table or more at any of the sales when we had like a Christmas sale event. Collage often had a table or more tables of their own and were always very helpful there. Collage members, and Jerry, of course, you were very involved with this. You were involved with the bus, helping with ushering and other parts of the worship service, helping on the church council, often were in leadership roles for any of the teams. That was one of the greatest parts about Collage was it wasn't just a spur group of people that were in a church that said, okay, we recognize you and you can be here, but rather were integral in the total life of the church.
And do you remember any involvement of allies, straight allies?
Yeah, of course, the biggest one to come up with is Lee Brockman.
Right.
Joan Beach was definitely one.
Great.
Am I correct that when you were involved was a time when we began to have more females in the group? Was that during your time?
Oh yeah, Sarah coming in was one of the big transitional things, and we were always very hopeful to have women come in as well.
Well, Tom, I remember the first day that Natalie and I visited as snowbirds, and you were at or near the door, and you took us by the hand and you said, "You wait right here." And we waited, and you went in and you brought out Sarah and Barbara, and we were hooked.
And the same kind of thing happened for other people where they came in and said, well, we're looking for a very progressive church. And Doug said, well, here, wait a minute, let me introduce you to my husband, Tom. And they said, wow, we've come to the right place.
And the first time we attended, we were amazed, immediately decided to join the church. So we attended an orientation meeting. It was a group session, how they have them. All the people who plan to attend can go and ask questions. But he was asking the questions and telling about it. So he said, another group we have, it's called Collage. Does anyone know what that is? Well, I knew what that was. I knew that it was a support group for gay and lesbian people, and that surely there were allies in it supporting each other. The very first day that we went to our church, two people who were very charming and friendly met us at the door, and that was Doug Smith and Tom Reeves. And we wanted to get to know them if possible. And so one of the first things that happened was that the church had a dinner combined with a silent auction to raise money for one of the organizations, probably for the youth group. And Tom and Doug had put in the silent auction the opportunity to have dinner with them at Carrabba's. So I kept re-signing the silent auction sheet so that I was sure I was going to be the last one on it. I kept upping the ante. And so, yes, we did get to go to that dinner with Doug and Tom. And I guess one of the things we talked about was my disappointment that, they had this great group. So the next meeting, he invited us to attend the meeting. We attended that. We had such a great time. Everyone was so kind to us. We went to the next meeting and we haven't gone home since.
I don't remember exactly what year I started. I do remember my very first interaction with a collage was the first Sunday I went there, and they were serving communion, and there was a gay couple and a black couple and an older couple, and I remember thinking, yes, Lord, that's the way it's supposed to be, isn't it? And that has always stuck with me. We were drawn to that church because of their gay, open, and affirming. At that time, we did not know the name Collage, but we very soon discovered it. David York was leader at that time. And then when I took over, when David no longer felt he wanted to do it, two major things happened The main thing that happened was the women began to come to Collage. This had never happened. No matter how much the men had reached out, the women were not willing to come. And I think it was you and Barbara that actually started that transition into the women coming. But it was a great benefit during my time there. We really, really grew because of opening of the women. And that's probably been a good, 10 years ago? And then when you came, then others felt free to come. So I've always been grateful for that. The other change that we made when I was leader was we began to bring speakers in from the community to talk to Collage about what else is going on in the community. We had one of the police chiefs, I think. We had a woman from Children's Services. We had a person from the Abuse Center. We had a person from Also, the leader of Also. My goal was to make Collage community known and to make Collage aware of what else was going on in the community, but reaching out in two ways. One, when visitors come, when new people come, we need to be sure that they understand that Collage is there, that it's welcoming, that it's, and that kind of thing. But I also think we need to reach out, be supportive of organizations like Also, etc. I remember we had a transgendered woman in the Collage, Billy, and Billy would take the Collage brochures from church and put them in her doctor's office and in therapist's office. And that we were part of Gay Pride, Sarasota and Manatee County. We had booths at both of them. We got a couple of new people from that. I think one other point, Collage has been a super support group. I know when people have been ill, when Steve came home from the hospital the first time, I didn't have to cook for 3 days. Collage was there. That support of one another is such a vital part of the organization that I hope we keep hold of.
Jerry and I became co-facilitators of Collage in January of 2020. We established an advisory team, which has been most helpful in the operations of the group. The advisory team consists of you, Sarah, Barbara Shaver, Dale Moore, Dick Miller, Pastor Wes, and Jerry and me. We meet as needed to do planning for the group. We started meeting in the Oasis Center. I don't know if we had 1 or 2 luncheons. About 32 people attended the last luncheon in February of 2020. Then, because of the COVID restrictions, it became necessary to meet via Zoom, and we're continuing to meet that way. And there have been about 12 to 15 people max meeting on Zoom. Meeting on Zoom has allowed the group to personalize social justice issues and share their personal responses. And it's provided a safe place for the support of that group.
It's been a very strong piece of Collage as a group becoming a stronger group, I think. People have a much better sense of each other. They know each other. They feel safe with each other. And we had discussions that are very intimate in terms of people's experiences. So it's been important. Somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of the participants are usually allies. The church had been for 20 years an open and affirming church, and it was stated in the bylaws. But the denomination really talked about wanting churches to make covenants. And I think we really bought into that. The Collage bought into the idea that we needed a covenant, because a covenant is really, as a church, it's a promise to God. And our covenant was written and to begin to have the church really begin to look at and promise to work with the LGBT and support the LGBT community. And everything Collage does now, at least, we look at it in terms of how are we living into that covenant.
And so many of the things that we've done, all the things we've done perhaps as a group, we've done as a way to live into the covenant. And I noticed that one of the things we did was the banner that's behind you, Jerry, in your background.
Right. That banner was important as a way of saying to the community, we are here and we want you to come in. We're inclusive. And again, that banner was designed by Collage as a group. We had discussions about what should be on it, what color should be there, all the kinds of things. So it became a real activity that Collage operated and became something that people recognized and bought into as a part of living into the covenant.
It was dedicated on Pride Sunday in June 2021. As well, we have been deliberate in having LGBTQ folks on church teams, which has allowed us to be more visible, more included in the planning of the church life.
I think the Collage at the beginning was much oriented towards a social group, but particularly in the last, maybe under the last leadership of Collage, and then particularly under this one, we've expanded that to be more in terms of looking into more social justice. We've been much more support within the group and helping members of its church who have different issues. For example, I know when I came out of the hospital, people provided me with meals and those kinds of things, which has gotten much stronger. Plus also trying to be a social group.
One of the biggest things we're doing is we're making this video history of Collage and a O&A process. So I'm really glad to be a part of this.
I don't want to pass up the fact that Reverend Bixby has been a super
Ally.
for our ally, yeah, for our group.